So just a quick overview of what our partnership with Resilience Initiative, what's available through our partnership with the Resilience Initiative. Here at Progressive Multiplier, we have joined up with Resilience Initiative to offer one-on-one fundraising coaching. So through this coaching, you get 1 to 5 hours of individual coaching and consulting with a Progressive Multiplier staff member. And Fundraising Fridays. So we hold these sessions every once a month, Friday. We kind of go over and share our fundraising, any fundraising topics we want to talk about. If you're interested in any of these offerings, please reach out to Michelle Mangle to hear more or to sign up for coaching. A little bit about Progressive Multiplier here. Progressive Multiplier is a here at Progressive Multiplier, we believe that money multiplied is knowledge democratized and change amplifies. Progressive Multiplier helps organizations build financial resiliency so they can weather the chaos of the moment and grow with agility. We are dedicated and committed to the sustainability and resilience of organizations today. A quick meet the team here at Progressive Multiplier. Here is our wonderful team. We do have 2 new staff members who are joining us, who have joined us, I think, in just the last week or so. So if you come to one of our next sessions, you will see 2 new faces on this slide. But this is the team as it stands right now.
Okay, should I take it away?
Yeah, and then I will take it away so that you can meet your trainer today.
Lovely. Okay, I'll put myself up. Hi guys, I'm Emily Davis. I am just outside of Washington, D.C., Falls Church, Virginia. I'm coming to you with about 20 years of experience, a lot in the DC general area around fundraising. And today we're talking about CRMs. I have had the dubious honor of starting multiple CRMs at different nonprofits of different sizes. I've worked with the big ones, Salesforce, all the way down to little tiny ones, including Kindful, and then kind of in the middle with Bloomerang. So what I'm sharing today is a lot of great insight from a webinar that I'll mention, which really had people with great expertise. But I'll also share a little bit of my experience, and I'm hoping people on the call will also share theirs. A little bit about me. I am a trivia enthusiast. My husband and I met over trivia, and I'm also a Girl Scout leader in my personal time. My favorite candy is candy corn, so please don't judge me too harshly, but I am one of those people who does like candy corn. And let's go ahead and jump in. Please feel free, interrupt with, if you have a question, throw it in the chat and Sabrina will bring it up. Or if you want to come off mute and ask a question, please do. This is a small group, so we've got a lot of opportunity to chat with each other. So today, just to kind of ground us, we want to talk about not just how to go about finding a new CRM, but who to involve. So how do we have a good partnership at our organizations? Who do we want in that conversation from the beginning to make sure it's a really good fit? There's no such thing as a best CRM. It's just best for you right now, right? How do you figure out what's best for you? How do you identify your actual needs? What kind of data you have to capture? How do you need to report? Who's going to use it? And then really nuts and bolts, how do you go about that? What's your rubric? How do you go about sifting through all this information? So that's what we're hoping to accomplish today, and also lots of other fun tidbits together. To get us started, go ahead and put an emoji in the chat. How are you feeling about implementing a new CRM? Are we really excited? Are we a little overwhelmed? How are you feeling? Go ahead and drop something in. We'll get a quick pulse check of how everybody's doing today. I love salute. I love strong arms. All right. We're having some good feels. We got our glasses on. We're ready to go. Love this. All right, we got our sunnies. Our future is very bright. Excellent. All right, nobody's on fire. All right, we're feeling a little cloudy. Fair enough. Okay. There we go. There's an honest one. All right. This is great. Okay, so I feel like there's a lot of potential. We're feeling potential, but we need to learn a little bit more. This is great, friends. All right, so I am going to talk a lot today about the CRM evaluation and implementation toolkit. We'll make sure that you have the link for that before the end of this conversation. This is a great tool that Progressive Multiplier put together, in part, in fact, largely based on this wonderful webinar that was also already hosted. So I'm going to speak to that a lot and also bring in some additional information. And again, hopefully this group will bring in some information too. So the toolkit was created to help all of us evaluate potential CRM solutions. And again, it's not to find the best, right? Every individual person trying to sell you a relationship management tool is going to say they're the best, right? There is no one the best. It's what do you need? What's best for your constituents? How do you want to use your data? It's really about what's best for your team right now. So we're going to talk a lot about how do we find a system that has the right strengths for you, that handles data in a way that's appropriate for your organization, that speaks to your constituents the way that you want. And really, it's about what works right now, what works in the immediate future, with the understanding that your needs will change as your organization grows. Um, I will actually put this in the chat right now, just so you guys have it. Great webinar for you to also check out. And that's more of a discussion versus a training. It's really a conversation around people who've done a lot of work with data in the progressive space, talking about the ins and the outs of selecting a CRM, using them, and also some of the challenges with CRMs being bought and sold, and how does that change their customer service. So a really great conversation. Just that link for you to have for the future gives a little more depth to this conversation as well. So first question, who do you want to have in your conversation? I come from this primarily as a fundraiser, and I know coming at conversations as a fundraiser, we don't work in a vacuum, right? We need to have our friends in program management, certainly our friends in finance, but also who's front of house? Does your organization have events and sell tickets? Ideally, whatever tool you decide on is going to work for the entire organization, because if it doesn't work for everyone, they're not going to use it, and then your data is not going to be as good. So let's talk about that a little bit. I really encourage you at the very beginning to loop in all of the parts of the organization that might be involved. So, for example, finance, communications, programs. There's probably more people in your organization. These may be staff members, these might be board members, these might be skilled volunteers. Who is using data and might have some really great thoughts on how could that all work better together? The earlier people come on board, we know this, the more likely they are to feel good about the decision made at the end. It might take you a little longer to come to a decision, but you will be able to hopefully move forward as a team versus somebody second guessing your great choice at the end. The biggest thing we want to do is make sure that all of the departments are able to work together and we don't have little silos of information. I feel like every organization I've worked at, no matter how small, still has silos. And so how do we break that down a little bit and make sure, the volunteer information and the donor information is all coming together and is as up to date and as correct as possible? Now, the flip side of that, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, is if all of your information lives somewhere, you do want to be aware of safety, right? And who has access to that information and who gets to edit it. So we will talk about that. That's almost always the first conversation that comes up is if I'm going to give you my data, right? If I finance, I'm going to connect with you. If I communications, I'm going to share emails. How do we keep it all safe? So let's put that all on the table. Let's have that conversation at the beginning. So who will be using this data and for what purpose, right? Are we sending emails? Are we doing donation requests? Is the finance team pulling grants or pulling reports, excuse me? Is your program team pulling information for grant reporting? Just really put everything on the table. Who might be using this data and for what? Because the more you can identify at the beginning and then prioritize, the easier it will be to actually make a decision. Any questions about that before we kind of move into how do we look through our organization? Okay, lovely. So I want to start with something that sounds simple, but usually actually isn't, and that's the idea of who are your constituents? Who are you going to have information about? And the reason I say it's not simple is because depending on who you ask in the organization, you might get a different answer, right? In fundraising, we might say, well, our donors, right? That's who we need to think about. But are they all individuals? Are there foundations in there? How are they different and how is their data different? Is the way that we talk to a potential donor different than how we talk to a very long-term partner? So your constituents may become more complicated the more you ask the questions. Volunteers, board members, clients, former clients, alumni. Really think about what's your entire universe of humans because you probably will need different information on them. And so thinking about how that might work in one data compilation area is really important to think about. How do we relate to those groups? So, for example, are we tracking volunteer information? Do we want to know how long someone's been a volunteer? And is that different from how long they've been a donor? If someone was a client and was able to use our services and then becomes a donor or becomes a speaker, how does that change how we relate to them? Do we have a membership program? Do people have different times of year when their membership might lapse? All of these different ways of being in our database. And I think like put everything on the table and then start to prioritize it and then go to a potential CRM partner and say, here's what we need to do. Do you have the capability of supporting all these different ways of being? But it's better to ask it at the beginning versus finding a CRM that you love and realizing there's no recurring donor option. There's no membership option. It's not made for that. Really think about how your organization works and what data you need to track. Um, the last question to really think about, and this is one of those, this is the way we've always done it questions. What information is important and why? Is it possible that some information is more important? Is it possible that some information needs to be searchable, needs to be in reporting, and other information is kind of a nice to have? Really think about what's that priority and how do you need to initially react to someone. We do sometimes need to stratify our information, so it's really good to be thinking about that. So the reason we want to talk to everybody at the beginning is because we do need to all agree on who is our audience, how are we segmenting them? Again, is alumni different than current? Is a board member different than a general volunteer? And how do you want to talk to people throughout their lifespan? So I always think about this as donor lifespan, but this is true for clients, this is true for students, volunteers. Okay, if you're a prospect, I'm probably speaking to you a little differently than if you're an active donor. If you're a potential volunteer, I'm probably speaking to you a little differently than a former volunteer. So as you're thinking about your data, how many different ways do you want to segment it? Is it truly just volunteer or is it volunteer in different programs? Really think about that and think about what are the expectations you want to set for everyone in your organization, both how detailed can this information be and how easy is it to access. We're going to talk a little bit later about data security and different profiles, but do think about, friends, if we're all putting our information in together, who has access to it, how quickly, and how detailed, and really think about what people need to do their jobs and do it well. This is a fancy way of saying, what are you currently doing? So mapping your tool ecosystem. What are you currently using? Are you using one system for emails, a different system for your website, something else for social media? What does your entire footprint look like? What is the most task heavy? What takes the most time away from your direct work? And ideally, what is going to talk to each other? If somebody likes your page, do you want to know that in your CRM? If somebody has multiple emails, do you want them to merge easily? Do people need to be able to log in and edit their own information? Just be aware of everything you're currently doing. It may not be possible to get it in one tool, but if at least those tools can speak to each other, that will take away the challenges of incomplete data or having to update multiple places. We really want to get you away from having to have multiple spreadsheets, multiple tools that aren't speaking to each other. Ideally, everything can tie in a little bit and keep that information flowing. So, not just what tools do you currently use, but do they talk to each other? Do they talk to each other well? Could they talk to each other better? If they were to change, what integrations have to remain no matter what? And what are kind of nice to haves, but you could change around? This last point here is about kind of this data repository. So, what is your data what information do you know is correct? And this is where we get into like, is the CRM your data repository? So where does all the information flow? So if you're confused and there's multiple emails for one person, which one do you know is right? And how do you know it's right? So you're going to take all of your information, your old spreadsheet, your old database if you have it, your spreadsheets, your email marketing tools, that person who keeps things in a notebook. You want to get that all together and figure out what is correct. Because one of the worst things to do is to migrate all your data to a new shiny CRM and then realize it's completely duplicated. We don't know which one is correct. The dates aren't accurate. So a lot of the pre-work is what do you need? And then also what do you have and how clean and tidy is it? This is where you really want to think about what are your rules for data? Who gets to tell the database something new? Who gets to edit? Who gets to merge? And how does that system work? You want to make sure that as much as possible, the information that goes into the database is correct, is simplified, is what you need and nothing more. And so, what is that system? Who is the owner of the database, or are there multiple people who can do it? And what does that rule look like? I will say I've definitely inherited several databases where people got very excited about the new tool, migrated everything in, and things happened like every donation date is the same, January 1st. Not super helpful. Or we had so many copies of data and then had to sit and merge and do it all together. The more you can do ahead of time, the much easier it will go. And again, the more people you can have in that conversation so that you don't find something later on that has to be migrated in, the better off you will be. So I think this is a good time to have a little conversation. And these are two really good questions. And I think we get stuck on the second one, right? What are your current challenges for your data, whether it's in a CRM or it's not? But where I'd love to start is what's currently working? If you're using a database, what do you like about it? If you're using a spreadsheet or you're using an email tool, what do you like about it? What's working well? I'd love to start there as a conversation. I'm actually going to take the slides down for a minute and then we can go to challenges. But I do think if we don't talk about the things that work well, we may forget how important they are and end up with a CRM that actually doesn't have that capability. So why don't I take this down for just one second and we can chat. Does anyone have a system that they like that you're willing to share a little bit about? I can jump in with an example and I'd really love somebody to share. So I have a
Hi.
client right now. Oh, go ahead, Trish. Did you have one?
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me?
I can. You're a little quiet, but please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hold on one second. Let me try something. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's a little bit better. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hi, good morning, everyone. So the CRM that we're currently using is called Neon One. The reason that we went with this is because of all the customizations
Hmm.
that is available to us. And it's fairly, in terms of like the user experience, it's fairly easy to use, which was
Hmm.
a big selling point for me. Um, I think for our organization, I would say the positive right now is just the amount of support and buy-in from uh, our sort of our leadership team. So
Hmm.
my boss, who is the COO, our director of comms, they're all like, I didn't need to um, convince them that this is
Yeah.
something that we needed. They all understood the value of this, and so having their support has been so helpful so far.
That's a great point of having the leadership buy into it. Could you share a little bit more just how you went about getting their buy-in, or were they kind of interested from the get-go?
Yeah, I think part of it was just having been in working in this space previously.
Hmm.
Both of them, they had the awareness of how important it is to be able to track and manage data. I think the second point, which you've also brought up, is I did involve them
Hmm.
early as possible in the
Yep.
conversation so that, I was asking for their input, like what is it that we're looking for, conversations like that. So I had those from the beginning so that throughout, they felt like this was like a shared thing that we were all working towards.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing. That's really helpful. I have a couple comments in the chat. We designed and use our language and our definitions. That's huge. So it sounds like your organization. And then someone's migrating to give butter and still using our language for the campaigns. That's great. Anna, please go ahead.
Hi. Here I'm trying to come to video so you can see I'm a human on the other
Oh, I
side.
appreciate you.
I know it's hard when nobody is on video. So we are really small. We have I would say CRM light. We use
Hmm.
Airtable because it's
Yep.
so customizable and we're dealing with foundations and individuals and we're getting ready to launch a membership program, which is my reason for coming because that's a
Yep.
volume thing and a
Yes.
cadence and so we have Airtable as the sort of source of truth,
Hmm.
but we also use Mailchimp for
Yep.
our newsletter, which is attached to and is segmented
Great.
by other audiences as well, so not just donors. Um, And what's the other piece we have here? Oh, we use like every.org for
Hmm.
campaigns, but when you have multiple types of donations coming in, not everything's coming through. And we're
Hmm.
getting ready to move away from there so we can sync it to our Squarespace, which is going to
Yep.
have the donation platform for the membership because a better user experience. So I'm trying to figure out how to
Hmm.
streamline and centralize online donations for membership, but also think about data privacy and integration on the back
Yep.
end and automations. And is Airtable really going to be the place we stay, or do we need to move to something more robust while
Yep.
maintaining these different segments of donors and also prospects?
Yep, that's a great one. And Airtable's a great tool, but it's more designed for project management than it is for donor management, or I should say constituent management. How many total people do you currently have?
On staff?
No, like kind of when you're managing,
Oh,
you're thinking about how many emails or how many people are in Mailchimp. I'm just curious what your size is right now.
it's small. It's like
Hmm.
only like a little over 500.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
And
but
that might increase with the membership.
well, right, because our membership we're trying to attach to our product. We have a digital product that
Hmm.
reaches
Hmm.
hundreds of thousands. So the potential scale is quite large
Yep. Yep.
and it would be a great problem to have. But so anyway, just trying to think about when is it the right time to think about
Yep.
scaling when I we haven't started it yet, but do we want to deal with scaling in the middle of
That's a great
overwhelm?
question. That's a great question. And we will talk a little bit because your point exactly about CRM Lite, I'm going to talk a little bit about of like, do you need a CRM? Do you not? When do you? And thinking, okay, can we project out a year, 2 years, 3 years? Because yeah, ideally the right time to do it is before you're so busy, but when are we ever not so busy, right? Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. I think somebody else had a hand up, or possibly I know Diane, you just came on video. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, I can share. We use Nation Builder. We've had Nation Builder, I
Oh.
think, since like 2018.
Hmm.
And so we use it for our for the emailing, the newsletter, for tracking like individual donors.
Hmm.
I think we use it more on the fundraising side, but our
Hmm.
organizing teams don't really um yeah, we haven't found a way to get everyone to like
Mm.
input information into Nation Builder.
Yep.
I think we're in a place of like figuring out what CRM we can use. I think on Nation Builder we have 10,000 people, but I don't think that is includes like everyone in our universe.
Yep.
We
Yep.
also we don't use Nation Builder to track like institutional donors. It's mostly
Hmm.
for the individuals. So
Hmm.
I don't like that about it. Our grants are we use spreadsheets to track grants.
Hmm.
Um, I wish there was a way to like And maybe it's something I haven't figured out, but I wish there was a way to get notifications around like a donor that has we haven't like made contact with in a while and hasn't given an
Yep.
amount is due for like that engagement.
Yep. Yep. I'm not as familiar with Nation Builder. I know there are CRMs that do that, so and so is lapsing, so and so hasn't had something in 6 months. But that's a really, I love that you're thinking about that of like, how can this be some of my brain so I don't have to constantly be thinking, how can it do a little bit of that for me? It's really smart. Yeah. Would anybody else like to share what's been working well? I'll share one of the clients I'm working with right now has Bloomerang, which I'm not sure if you all are familiar with. It's kind of like mid-tier, but it's just big enough and it directly connects with a donor search tool. So when you put somebody in and you put their information in, it's not 100% accurate, but it'll use their address and name, and they can tell you it looks like this person also gives in these ways, which is really helpful if you're thinking about, I have a board member. I wonder if they're philanthropic in other ways. Why are they not giving here? Just gives you a little bit of information. Can be a little creepy, but I do find it very helpful. Um, well, let me ask the question that I think you all. Oh, please, Liam, did you want to add something?
Yes, yeah. So I was hearing a lot about Neon and Airtable, and my organization uses both of those.
Hmm.
Airtable for the grants, just because it's so customizable, and
Yeah.
Neon for individual donors. And
Hmm.
a problem we've had with Neon has just been managing large amounts of duplicates. Um, and like even when it matches, how to be sure about, whether it's truly the same person and so on and so forth. And basically, yeah, that's been the main problem with Neon. But
Hmm.
yeah.
Liam, do you have a system for like who goes in and deals with duplicates? Do you have a dedicated person, or is it whoever sees them?
Yes, basically, yeah, we have me, our development associate, we go
Yeah.
in and I just go in and I just like clear them out pretty much once a week. Or if we're about to send out a big email, we're putting
Yep.
together a list. Anytime we're putting together a list, we just clear all the duplicates in the list. But the tool's a bit clunky in the to
Yeah.
do that. And so we were looking into whether there are other CRMs that do it more automatically,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and
as
I
well as
found even the
updating addresses as well.
Okay, that's a great question. I have found, even with all the CRMs I've used, the best way to do it is to send a mailing and have the US Post Office tell you what was wrong. But man, that's an expensive way to double check mailing addresses. Hmm. Yep. Yep. Well, would anyone like to share any frustrations you're currently having with their CRMs? I know those can sometimes be a little easier to get to.
I can share a frustration we're having is as we've been scaling, being
Mm,
surprised by some of the fees that come up, and how
yes.
quickly it's like we want to grow. And it kind of feels like,
Mhm.
well, if you want to grow, you're looking at thousands of dollars more with very little notice, or you can just remove people from your list, which neither feels like a great option.
That's a great call because I think a lot of CRMs, especially when they're advertising to us, they'll say like, "Oh, it's free or it's nearly free," but it's often based on how many names you have. And to your point exactly, well, I don't want to get rid of my names because even a lapsed donor is incredibly valuable or a lapsed advocate is incredibly valuable, and then it scales up from there. That's a great call, Sarah. That is really challenging. Yeah. Yeah.
100%. And I can share we're
Mhm.
using every action. Right now, we're really interested in live impact, but I very much welcome.
Mhm.
I'm on comms side, so like doing a
Mhm.
newsletter and everything through there. But if people have platforms they recommend, I'm all ears. And I think that's what's hard too, is it's not just us tracking donors, where it's like, well, if they
Yeah.
hadn't given in 5 years, it's like people might not be, we don't know how valuable the newsletter is. We don't just want to like remove them.
100%. 100%. And there's so much research around, like if you look at planned giving, right? People may have not given to you their entire lifetime, but been engaged in your newsletter, and then all of a sudden there's a planned gift that shows up, right? So we don't want to take away that opportunity for someone to engage. That's so true. Mhm. I love my thumbs up. We all know about that planned giving. All right. Well, I don't want to shut off conversation. This has been really helpful. Please feel free to jump in, but I thought I would move forward with the slides. But please feel free to interrupt and ask a question or share some more. These have been great additions. All right. Does that look okay for everyone? I'm still learning how to do this. All right. So, something I wanted to speak about, and we did kind of touch on this a little bit, talking about who's in charge of duplications, who's managing things. When you're thinking about a CRM, what is the level of technical expertise on your team? What is people's knowledge, comfort, availability? Do you have a comms team that maybe has one set of skills and a fundraising team with a different set of skills, or whoever might be managing your volunteers or your board members? So just think about that and be honest with it. Sometimes some of the CRMs we see are really cool. They have lots of bells and whistles, but do we have the time, inclination, and skills to use all those bells and whistles? And do they really make sense for our size and what we're trying to do right now? I think something to really be thoughtful about is how much training might be needed. What's that lag time? Who's going to offer it? And as we were talking about costs that might pop up, what costs might be associated with learning, getting on the same page, actually being able to use this tool? I think reporting's a huge one, whether it's fundraising, whether it's program management, volunteers. It's great to put data into a system. Can we get that data back out? And can we get that data back out in a way that's useful to us? So is it something where the reports that exist are going to meet your needs? Can you make your own reports? Can you do so easily? Is there any sort of fee for that? And especially if you're looking at grantors, is there specific information you're going to have to get back out of your database? And can you do so in a timely manner? So just think about that. What kind of information is going in, and can you get it back out in the way that you can actually use it? Or are you signing yourself up for a lot of spreadsheet maintenance because it's going to come out in just a raw data form? So we already touched on this a little bit, right? CRM light, and I love that term. So are you ready for a full CRM? And even having said that, there's different layers, right? Are we going all the way to Salesforce or Razor's Edge, which really were created for people who are doing one-on-one sales and have been used for fundraising? Or do you need something a little simpler that might manage your email and make some connections? So this goes back to the conversation at the beginning. What do you need right now? What's the information? What's your universe of constituents, and how do you want to be able to talk to them? And honestly, what's your budget? We certainly have to ask that too, right? But if there is one tool that could maybe combine several kinds of data, there might be some cost savings, or maybe it's not quite as expensive as we think. And that's why you want to have this conversation not in a silo. If communications has a budget and so does fundraising and so does program, maybe there's a tool that can meet all of us in the middle and it's not quite as big of a lift. Something to think about. Here are the things to throw out here. I'm so glad somebody mentioned Airtable. I should have thrown that on here. We all know spreadsheets are a pill, but sometimes they do what we need them to do. Airtable is a great tool. It doesn't, I don't think, manage relationships in that same way that a CRM could, but it helps you project manage. It helps you move forward with things. It does help you manage a few of those pieces. Um, Think about how you're managing your donations. If your donation forms are automatically going somewhere and keeping that information, are they talking to your email system? Are they not? Do you have recurring donations? Is that information easy to pull? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes those recurring donations are almost in their own world and you can't actually get that donor data out. Are you selling tickets? Do you have different kinds of money coming in? It needs to be tracked differently. Sometimes a membership is different from a donation, is different from an event. So, how does that mesh? Does it not? And do those systems need to talk to one another? I do think, and I believe somebody already mentioned this, MailChimp or some of those mail systems can be a great tool to start, especially if you don't have quite as many constituents. If it's a couple hundred, you can really manage them and see what they're opening, see what they're clicking on, get to know them a little bit. Those systems aren't going to do the reminders, right? They're not going to tell you it's been 6 months since you contacted them. They're not going to be able to hold as much information. But just to start to see how people are interacting with you, they can be really, really solid. But I do want to say it may not be time for a full CRM yet. And it really is a balance of what do you need to be true for your constituents? How many of them do you have? And how much information do you have? And are you trying to track in multiple systems right now? If you're deciding to not go all the way with a CRM, or maybe you just haven't made that move yet, I do think you need some structure. So, how are you logging names? What are you keeping track of? What are you noting? I use the term interaction. That might you might use a different term for it, but have we sent them an email? Are they opening it? Are there any notes that we can keep track of? How often are you updating it? So whether you have a fancy CRM or you're using spreadsheets, who's in charge of it? How often are you checking up on it? Just making sure it's up to date. And I do think if you're using a CRM or not, stewardship is the most important thing, right? Whether it's a volunteer giving their time, a donor giving their money, how are we making sure that they feel connected to us? Because that's the most important thing of all of this, right? Is the relationship and how can we keep them a part of our movement and want them to engage more fully with us? So we talked a little bit about budget because that always comes up. Free CRMs do exist. Huge word of caution, and I think somebody already kind of spoke to this. The system might be free, but are all the parts that make it work well free? Is the system free, but data migration has a fee? Or is it free for X number of emails? Just be very aware that free CRMs are often not free. Doesn't mean they're bad, it just means they're trying to get you to join, and then there will be fees after all. A lot of times, additional functionality, getting reports of any kind, or maybe getting reports that work for you could be an additional cost. Be very clear about what is the budget, what is it actually going to cost. And then, as we were talking about the membership program, if you were to add 10% more names, if you were to double your names, how does that impact your cost? Because we don't want to limit ourselves, especially when it comes to new supporters, because we don't have enough space in our database or in our email system.
Emily, can I actually jump in really quick?
Absolutely.
We had a question by Cass
Oh, great.
in the chat, where she where they mentioned that their organization currently does not have a CRM, but they are hoping
Mhm.
to find CRMs that do both grants management and donor management really well. Was
Yes,
asking
yes.
for suggestions, and I kind of
Mhm.
wanted to go back to that point you were talking about
Yeah.
building systems. So it's always my experience, at least in working with in CRMs, is that it's always one or the other, or as Emily was just speaking to, that you have
Mm.
to pay for the other, like the other usability or that other module, so that
Mhm.
they don't all come standard with a grants module. You'll end up having to pay more for that, and if that's not in your, in your capacity to do so, it becomes really complicated, and
Yeah.
you're now just using it for your individual donor base or whatever. But I think Emily's point to creating these systems is super important. I think the understanding how you're managing grants and how you're managing your language,
Mm.
right? It was also spoken about in the chat earlier. What's the language you're using? What is that, to use a maybe a fundraising, like super fundraising term, the moves management system that you're using?
Mhm.
Make sure those terms are usable throughout your functional areas, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
does your cultivation space, is it, are you, when you're talking about cultivation and stewardship for your individual donors, does that mean the same thing with your grants folks? How does that work? Making sure that you are trying as much as you can to make your data intersectional and within a system, so that your grants management and your individual donors are not two separate data
Mhm.
spaces. That's also something important to consider, that all of your data is cohesive and speaks to one another. You don't, because then you're basically looking for two CRM. You're looking for a CRM that is two entirely different things. If you're, the way you're tracking your data is completely different across your systems. So make sure that when you do that, ground setting exercise, and everything is on the table, you're looking at it and seeing, is there a net that we can place over all
Mhm.
this data, and does it weave and does it talk? Or when we do the individual donor work and the data management for our individual donors, does that look completely different from what we're doing with the grants management and grants administration side? That could be a problem, right? Because even within the team itself, you're speaking two different languages about how you're, collecting your data and what data you think is important. So maybe have that conversation first to see like what aligns here and what can be, overlapped between the management of grants, of our grants administration and the individual donor moves that we're making sure you're making that cohesive. And that might be a quick, alternative or a plan B, just in case that perfect CRM doesn't exist for you, of like, okay, well, this ticks, 80% of the boxes we need,
Mhm.
doesn't have that strong of a grants management system, but because our data speaks and is cohesive, we can make this work with these slight adjustments and these slight
Mhm.
tweaks. So that's just something I would recommend doing, because I kind of always chuckle when I see like the grants management and the individual donor. I come from the space of institutional funding. I am the grants person, and we couldn't. It almost felt like we were always forgotten on the grants admin
Mhm.
side and favored over the individual donor and the membership folks, right? Because that's where a lot of the moves management needed to happen. So if you find the perfect CRM that has both, please share that in the chat. But that is something that, I would consider, and just word of advice to everyone when you're looking at your data is making sure that it's systematized and that it's cohesive across your fundraising streams and revenue
Mhm.
streams.
Mhm. That's a great point. I love that. If anyone has had experience with grants management and individual managers in the same database, pro or con, we would love to hear that. And I think the big challenge too is not just how do you manage the donor relationship from a grants perspective, but how do you manage all of the things you've promised to do and whether they've been accomplished or not, and managing all that great data so you can report back. Okay, and I think we saw a couple more things in the chat too. Okay. All right. I'm going to move forward unless there's any other questions or suggestions on that, because I want to get into a little bit of how do we learn from each other? How do we get some more information? Okay, awesome. So we're doing this a little bit today, friends, as far as peer research. So anyone who works at a CRM is going to want to try and sell it to us. That's great. We know that there are great CRMs out there, but again, we want to find the right CRM for us. So what I would really encourage you to do, and we've already done a little bit of this today, is think about who are your peers, whether they are organizations that are about the same size, that do similar work. Maybe they're in your community, maybe they're across the country. But think about, okay, if we have a membership program, who else has a membership program might be around the same size? Or maybe who's a little bit bigger than us, but we're hoping to grow to that size. Those are who you want to talk to about their CRM. If an organization has millions of contacts and you have 100 contacts, whatever CRM they're using probably doesn't matter to you. But if they're doing similar work on a similar scale or a little bit um, larger than you, that might be a great group to talk to. Talk to them about their CRMs. What are they using? Are they still using Airtable and it's working really well for them, but they have some modifications? Are they using a different kind of email service? What are they using and how is it working? And remember to ask both what's good, which a lot of times, and I fall into this trap too, I will lead with what's bad because CRMs are very frustrating, as we know. What's working well? What's challenging? All of us in the space want to help each other. We're happy to share. It might also be really smart for you to talk with, can I speak with someone in your donor pool? But also, can I talk to someone who does communications or grants management, not talking not just to your peer, but who else is working on the other side of the table and what's working really well for them. But I would really encourage you to talk to some peers, maybe 3 to 5 different organizations that are similar size, and ask them what's working well. So, what tools are they currently using? Yes, CRM, but everything else. If they tell you, we use this database and it's great. Oh, we have 5 other tools to actually do our work. Just find out what they're using. What do they like? What are they paying? And this is a really honest conversation about, are you paying per name? Are you paying per report? Did the prices go up? All those sorts of things. What do they like and what's challenging about it? I would also really encourage you to ask about the onboarding experience they had. How was it getting their data into the system? What's customer service like? Are they getting responses? Are they getting an answer back when they call? Or has that changed recently? If you can find a few peers to give you that information, that won't necessarily decide the answer for you, but it'll help you get a universe of who to look at. So you're not looking at something where the scale is completely different from what your organization has. So once you have this slightly peer approved list, I want to talk a little bit about a rubric. And we've been talking this whole time about what's right for you and what's best for the people on your team. So now I think you want to think about, how do I weight it? How do I say this has to happen? This has to be true. This part of what I do is core to my mission and it has to be as easy as possible. This would be lovely, but I have a workaround. So again, you're going back to your group of humans and saying, okay, here are all the things that have to happen for this database to work for us. What's our number one priority and going all the way down. And try if you can to weight it a little bit, right? Gosh, I would love it if it connected to a donor search engine, but you know what? That's not as important as making sure it logs every single donation and I can manage grants through it. And this will be different for every single organization, but think about what is the most important, what's secondary, what would you be willing to pay more for in a couple years, but what has to work right now? I think this last point is really important, this idea of piloting a system. A lot of systems out there, and I think you should require this, will let you test drive. Not put all of your information in, but do a little sandbox. Put in a little bit of information, play around with it. I learn this way. If I can't get my hands on something and play with it, I don't fully understand it. So if you can actually get a little bit of data in, or even play around with some trial data that they may have, and just see, does it work? Can you merge duplicates? Does it make sense to you? Does it make sense to your colleagues? It may sound great on paper, but until you get in there and play with it, it may just not work for you and for your system. So please insist on some pilots and question why they won't support you in that way. If they're offering a pilot, they're more likely to be a good customer service partner, and that's something really important to know up front. So again, asking that trial, asking multiple people to try it out. You know what? Insist on as many things as you want. I think this is my point on this slide is ask every question you can. You are the customer, you are going to invest in the system, you want the system to work, and you also want to know, how do they treat you as a customer? Are they supportive? Do they care that the system is right for you? Kick the tires, do whatever you need to do to feel good about this decision so that you know you have the right spot for you right now. So a couple things, and I've probably touched on these because I tend to talk out of order. Customer service. Are you paying for customer service? What's their timeliness? Do they expect certain levels? So, yes, we have a free system, but you don't get any response from customer service, or we have a premium tier and it's extremely expensive. What do you need and how much support is there? Have they been around for a while, so much so that they have a bunch of training resources? Are there webinars or videos? Are there user groups where you can go and ask other people? Do they have spaces for you to get together? Think about how your team learns best, and is that a resource that this database has? Do they have urgent support? If there's an emergency in the middle of the night, what happens? Can they respond within 12 hours, 24 hours? What happens if it goes down during one of your big events? What do you do about it? And then ask them to tell you their plan for data migration. What do they recommend? Do they have templates? Do they help you move data in? That should be part of their services, is helping you get data in the best possible way so your system is useful to you. I want to talk a little bit about ownership and stability. And there's some great points about this in the webinar we offered earlier, and I'll make sure you guys have that link at the end. But thinking about who owns the system and uh, how do they treat their database and their product? Is this a company that was created within the nonprofit sector and it's treating the nonprofit sector as part of its mission, or has it been acquired and is really being treated more like less like a relationship and more like a product, because you want it to be something that you can use and that will stay and be stable for you for the long run. So that's just something to think about. I have some good questions that you might want to ask as you're thinking about it. Who owns what we're looking at, right? Is it a small company? Is it underneath an umbrella of a larger company? Do their values align with ours? Has it been bought by a bigger company that we don't feel great about and we're not sure that we want to align with them, or give them some of our hard-earned money? Have they been acquired in the past couple years, and does that change what we think about them? Do they release a lot of new features and they're really buggy, and do we need to worry about that? All of these sorts of things. Layoffs, restructuring. What are their plans for the future? Have they been upfront about how they plan to change this tool or not? You're investing in it. You want it to be a good tool for the long run. Are they investing in it as well? And I love this last question. Are there movement-owned alternatives? Are there tools that have come out of our work in the progressive space that might be a better fit and that align with our values? Always good to ask this conversation and see, like, what else could we be using, not just the big names, but ones that might align with us a little bit better. I wanted to make also a point about data equity. we're using a system and we want that system to speak to our constituents in the right way, right? We want it to speak to them in the right way that works for us and for our values. So, a couple examples of this that I think are really helpful. How do users get to self-identify? Can they create their own pronouns? What control do they have, and how many different ways can we reflect that? How many languages are available? Are they going to ask you for additional investments if you start using bilingual communication? What does that mean for your budget, but also for the way that you're showing up for your community? Similar conversation around disability justice. Can we use screen readers easily? Does it work well with adaptive technology? So, not just does it help your constituents use the tool and interact with you, but is it helping you show up in the right way that matters to you? This is probably a good conversation to have pretty early on. And don't necessarily take it for granted, but think about who are our constituents, what support do they need, and how do we want to make sure that we're showing up to them? Um, we shouldn't assume, although in theory, all of our tools should do this, we shouldn't assume that our tools are going to show up with the right pronouns or the right languages or even the right font size and shape. So make sure you're asking those questions early on and leading with that of we know we're going to need multiple languages. We know we're going to need this kind of diversity to show up, and that matters to us. That's part of who we are and make decisions accordingly. And another point to make on that is data ownership. And Sabrina, you might be able to share a little bit. I think Progressive Multiplier has a story about this from a couple years ago. But thinking about who owns your data. Once the data is in the system, who owns it? Can you get it back out easily? Do you need to pay to get it back out? Making sure that any data that you put into the system is still yours and you can still get back out easily, especially if there's any kind of challenges or you need to move on to a new tool. Sabrina, would you be willing to tell that story about the data loss?
I actually don't know it because it
Oh, okay.
predates me. But it's still a good question to ask, right? So let's say you're in the system, you put your time and your capacity into it, you've invested into the system, and it's not working for you anymore. And so now you've decided to migrate out of it. You've made another big shift, you bit the
Hmm.
bullet, and you're ready to move it forward. And all of a sudden, they're saying that you actually need to pay for your
Hmm.
own data, for your own list and your own names. Or that on the flip side, you find out that you're putting all this information in your donor data, your advocates, your members, they're going in there and it's pretty personal information, right? You depending on what you want to collect and what is useful to your programming and how you're managing your relationships, you're putting it into your system, your safe space, your source of truth. And then you find out that like, oh, actually the big conglomerate that owns our CRM is actually mining through
Hmm.
our data and using it and selling their information. And we can't do anything about it because in that tiny, tiny little fine print, it actually says that they have ownership of XYZ type of information, and we didn't know that. And so now that puts you into a really hard space with you and your constituency base of their information is they're trusting you with their information and it is technically not owned by you. So these are definitely big questions to ask. To again, to Emily's point, ask those questions, not just of the product of it itself. Ask that question of your salesperson that you're
Hmm.
interacting with. Who owns the data? Can we do this? Give them these situations of like, hey, I need to make sure that you're not going to go and turn around and sell this information. Is it completely blocked? How, big is that wall between sharing systems? Because yes, progressive multipliers lose information due to customization issues. This is also an issue when Emily hit it in the previous slide of like there's bugs and there's fixes, and like sometimes in our current system, we were using a type of feature that we thought was going to be really great, and then all of a sudden the system decided that we're no longer doing it, and they stopped it. They took it away from our system, and where did that data go? Where does it live? We did not have any ownership or say of how that feature was going to roll out or stop being used because we didn't own it. We didn't own that feature. We didn't get buy-in. So definitely ask those harder questions of ownership. Give them those situational, like, what happens when this, like, what is your rollout plan? Because if you truly own it, they will say, before, a system fix rollout, you will know you'll get to opt in or you won't, or we will support you in that space. So this is definitely a big question, especially nowadays with data security, data breaches, and how our data is being used, are big questions. So definitely consider it, especially with the missions that we have and the folks that we work with.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's very helpful. Another point on this is having different profiles for different users. So A, does the database support that? And then how do you want to set that up? So if you have, a volunteer coming in to do a little bit of phone banking, they certainly don't need full access to the database. Perhaps they don't get any access. Perhaps that's a printout and they have what they need on the page and they hand it back to you. But really think about what access do you want any donor, any user to have, excuse me, and who gets to have that access? What sort of paperwork or training do you want to make sure that they have before they have access to the database? But just thinking through the security of anyone in there. What sort of information is in there? Can it be downloaded? Can it be printed? How do you keep people safe and how do you keep their data secure and make sure that, by accident or by something else, someone doesn't have information that they shouldn't have access to? I think Sabrina hit on all of these great questions. Sabrina, thank you so much. That was so good. Um, Backup systems, I do want to raise up a little bit. So, what happens if something happens, right? Do they have offsite backup? Do they have multiple, right? How are they making sure that any data is secure? And how long would it take to get it back if there was some sort of issue? What kind of security measures are in place? And some of this gets real technical real fast, but they should be able to answer questions about this is what we do to keep our data safe. If something were to go down, this is how quickly we can get it back up. All of that should be very integral to their work to make sure that your information is safe and secure and can be brought back if there were ever an issue. We talked a little bit about what's your current ecosystem, right? What are all the various tools that you're using? Are they talking to each other? What connections do you need to be true? So, one of the things to think about as you're looking at your CRM is okay, what tools does it currently talk to? Some might be built in, some might be owned by the same over umbrella, so they might all talk to each other. That's wonderful. What if you have a tool that you really love? What if you don't want to lose your current email or you don't want to completely change how you run your website? Definitely talk about what can already talk to each other, what could talk to each other, and is there a fee there? Or how often do they connect? So just because two tools talk to each other doesn't necessarily mean they're keeping themselves up to date. Are they expecting you to do some sort of a download or some sort of a data push once a month? Or will they talk to each other every day on a regular basis? How does that data flow back and forth? And how do you, again, make sure that here's our one truth, here's our database that has the most up-to-date information and it's as good as we know it can be. And I think this question's come up before. We've put on some slides before. What changes in the next couple years? What's true right now, and how are you going to grow? So, what tools do you want to integrate, and how might that change in the next couple years? It's hard to know, but at least to be thoughtful about if we were to grow, if we were to have a few more members, what might change and shift, and what might we want to be true, or what might we want to change? Gonna move a little bit into budget and ROI, but before I do that, any questions about what we've brought up? It's a lot of information to take in.
I have a question.
Please, yeah.
Kind of going back to the data privacy and
Mhm.
ownership stuff. I think so. Our organization is like squarely positioned in the data privacy space. It's
Mhm.
like sort of a main feature, if you will, of how we think
Yep.
about our work, which is one of
Right.
the reasons we actually don't use a bunch of integrations is
Hmm.
to keep minimize sharing of data across systems that are internal or more sensitive,
Sure.
and financial data, fundraising data, donor data all seems it's all personally identifiable is how we think about it as more sensitive. And I think given I work in the reproductive health space, I think that all the nonprofit space has a lot of scrutiny, but in reproductive health, especially like anything that touches abortion, which we do, we want to be very mindful about our donor database. So I'm curious if you all have more thoughts or on like the security, like beyond just like who owns the data and can you have access to it, security or permissions controls, but just like, have you thought more about the when you might or might not consider integrations across platforms, or which CRMs? I know we haven't gotten into any CRMs specifically yet, but which CRMs have, like, does anybody have like encrypted data? Like, is
Great
there any
question.
way that we can keep the data not accessible
Mhm.
from the company that is providing the service so that only we have access to it? Like, are there options that are offering those sorts of things? Yeah, it's a bigger question, but I think
Yeah.
like more specifically, just trying to make sure that we keep data safe. And if there are moments when you think that integration isn't worth the increase in like speed of work.
That's a great question, and it ties exactly to what we were just talking about, right? Of like, depending on your organization and your mission, really is going to impact how you want to use your data and integrate. Sabrina, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I also worked for a reproductive rights organization in the past. Now, this organization did have a lot of resources and capacity at their disposal, but with the CRM that we were using, it was very called it a closed space.
Mhm.
There were no integrations outside of the software that we were using. Again, organization acknowledging the organization had a lot of resources, so they were able to buy the top tier of this.
Mhm.
Um, we had our own server on site for this for our CRM. So it was local to us. The CRM that we were working with, we could, talk to their techs and, help troubleshoot some stuff, but they wouldn't be able to remote into they had to work with our IT team to remote in to fix any like bug issues or like update anything. So that was kind of like the drawbacks there of like when there was a product update, it was a bit of a process to get
Mhm.
that updated because we owned that data on a private server within like on site. And it was separate from everything else because not only did we have our donor data, we had patient data
Mhm.
similar to what you might be doing, Anna. We had a call center coming in and fielding calls. We had medical records. All of those were separate, and we made sure to have those separate so that in case one of these were compromised, there were efforts, mitigation efforts to stop wherever that entry point was in. Acknowledging again, I will keep saying this, they had a lot of resources to do that,
Mhm.
and it required a lot of conversation. Did it stop it? No. We absolutely did still have a breach.
Mhm.
Probably Google it and find it because it happened. And it was still devastating. So definitely having those conversations of like where those entry points in. And I will say during that breach, our donor data was secure. We
Mhm.
knew, for instance, we knew that nothing was compromised on the donor data side, and nothing was being accessed that we didn't want them to be accessed because it was so internal,
Mhm.
and it was its own space. It was like an island unto itself, for our donor stuff.
And was that something you had to negotiate in your contract with your lawyers? Like, this is when you're like, we're going to create a special contract for our.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was I didn't manage that contract or the system, but I do know that we they paid the top tier price and managed to get some customizations out of it. So yeah, it was definitely something that we brought in, and we had, again, it goes back to that conversation Emily was saying at the top of this conversation, right? It was not only the development folks and communication folks that were having a conversation, we brought in IT.
Mhm.
We brought in our
Mhm.
lawyers to talk about,
Yeah.
who owns this data. They were all part of this discussion, and not just about like what does the grant cycle look like within this.
Mhm.
Well, our voices were a little tiny, then it became a bigger conversation about like how do we protect this, and a bunch of tech and legal
Mhm.
conversations started happening, once we figured and we settled like yes, this was going to be our system, to move forward in. So there's also a lot of compromises that we have to consider as well, right? Like we want a lot of features, but if it's not safe,
Yeah.
what's the value in that? So that's also something I think we need to consider as well. The usability, the ease of access, that all comes with a kind of, downside to that, or something that we need to consider in that space. So again, Anna might, when they're looking at their CRM options, they might need to take that into consideration and might use a CRM that might not be as usable as they want, might not have all like the pretty bells and whistles, but it is safe because cybersecurity is one of their main pillars in their organization, and that's what they're going to lean on because it aligns with their organization's values, and that is should be one of the leading your leading decision makers right there.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. And I would encourage you, if there are other organizations possibly in other states that may have some of the same concerns around data, it might be worth talking to them again when you're doing your peer research to say, this is our number one concern, or how are you guys mitigating that?
Yeah, and I think what I'm coming in, sorry, this is not meant to be my
No, no, no,
one-on-one
this is great.
consultation, but I think one of the things that I'm um, trying to grapple with, because I have been talking to other tech, privacy focused nonprofits that have
Mhm.
membership programs, because I do think there's like, we're thinking about the systems
Yeah.
parts as well as like the operational components. I just don't find we are such a small organization. Like
Mm,
I am responsible for fundraising across all of these different revenue models. And they have a whole like there's just like organizations our size are not like jumping at this type of venture
yeah.
really. They have like a memberships team, and I'm talking just to their
Hmm.
team, and their
Yep.
annual operating budget's like $30 million a year. So like I think this is the part where I'm also like, what's is there a comparable space for
Hmm.
us? Are we
Hmm.
silly for trying this? Anyway, so I think that's where I'm finding this sort of like capacity issue
Yep.
that Sabrina mentioned about like, paying the enterprise level package or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's really good you're thinking about it because you're right. It may not be the right fit just right now. And capacity, as Sabrina said, is really a challenge for a lot of people. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit more about budget and ROI, and then I want to have time at the end for conversation because this has been a really fruitful conversation so far. To your point about capacity, these things are expensive. Even if it's, a starter model, you're talking about 15,000 plus. And loading in data might be more, and recurring donor programs tend to get more expensive because they're just a little bit harder to manage. I don't think this is a surprise to anybody on the call, but this would be a big investment, right? It's time and it is money. And that's something for us all to be thoughtful of. A word on staffing support. I think a lot of the organizations I've worked with tend to bring in, oh, we'll bring in a consultant and that person will help us migrate all of our data and set everything up. Think about if bringing someone onto your team, either as an actual full-time position or as part of their duties, to learn and to understand how to support whatever tool you use, and to then be that person on your staff who can troubleshoot, who can talk to the tech people, who can build that institutional knowledge. I think you're going to need someone on staff anyways who's the go-to person, whether they're liaisoning with the consultant or actually doing the work. And to have someone on site who can be the communicator and the trainer and build that institutional knowledge can be really valuable. So think about that as you're thinking about, do we need an external person to help us do this? Is this something we can train someone to do or bring on a staff person and have that person whenever we need them can be really, really valuable. Um, we talked a little bit already about implementation and donor migration, all these fun things, but really be thoughtful about that donor model. Is it per user? Is it per record? Is it a flat fee? How might that go up in the future? And we're not saying don't spend money on it. Just think about the return on investment. It could be a really great use of your funds because it frees up your time and allows you to have deeper conversations or to offer a membership program and additional ways to bring more people into your mission area. But just be thoughtful about the full price, not just the immediate sticker price of what it's going to be, but what does everything look like once you have staffing and time and training considering into that package. I would encourage you to think about what's your full 3-year cost, because I also think we go into sticker shock if we think about like, oh, it's this much to implement. Okay, well, spread that over 3 years. Is that a really good investment? Will it accommodate the next couple of years of growth at that price? That could be a really great use of your funds. And once you spread it out over a couple budgets, maybe that feels like a much better fit. And then again, what are those limitations? How might you outgrow it? If you have someone on staff, does that help you grow with it and learn with it and engage better versus having a one-time consultant who then is not available to you as you have questions and as you grow? I think we've talked about this a little bit, but one thing to really pull out, and I think the question you'll get from whoever approves the budget, is there a new capability that it gives you? Does it help you open up a whole new way of fundraising or organizing? Does it help you make new connections? We were talking at the very beginning, I don't want to lose people on my newsletter because perhaps that person could be an estate donor in a couple years. Does it open up capabilities so that you can keep more people involved? Is there a way that you can increase your work, increase your output that really makes this investment worthwhile right now? It's really a great idea to think about, yes, I'm going to invest this, and here's what I'm hoping to see out of it. And understanding that you're not going to see it immediately, that's why I say 3 to 5 years. Think about this investment as an investment, as something that will grow over time, not necessarily pay for itself immediately, but how does it open you up to new people, new opportunities, all of those good things. We've already talked quite a bit about data migration, but I just want to kind of state this for the record that it takes a while to get up to date with a new tool. And that should be something that everyone's aware of as you start having these conversations. Not just the timeline for, finding the CRM that works well for you, getting your data nice and clean, migrating it over, but also thinking about how efficient will we be for those first couple of months? Do we need to learn a new way of being? Do we need to learn a new tool? It will take you more than a year probably to get up to speed. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is something that you want your entire team to be aware of. Be gentle with yourselves. Acknowledge that it might take a little longer to do things as you're learning and see it as a growth opportunity, but be aware of that. And it might take things a little while to settle down. Additional training is needed. People learn over time. So how do we support our team? How do we support ourselves? I think I'd love to take down the slides and just chat a little bit about how we're feeling after all of this. This was a lot of information. We've already had some great conversations. So why don't I take down the slides and I'd love to answer any other questions or if you all have any kind of next steps you're thinking about as we're coming to the end of this conversation. And as we're doing that, I'm also going to put in the survey so that you all have that as you finish up. And I'll put in the links for both the webinar and the toolkit that we mentioned. But I'd love to hear from you any thoughts or questions that may have come up.
If anyone wants to share as well, like the challenges that they've had in like
Mm-hmm.
either finding the right fit or just data overall. I know there's questions about like, you know, going from like Airtable to something else or sh Google Sheets or something that's challenging that maybe our folks here on the call can help with as well.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And thinking that through.
I'm curious for folks who use things like Airtable or Sheets, um, or whatever Excel alternative. Have you seen a typical like here's our next upgrade
Mm-hmm.
CRM level? Like Salesforce to me is the ultimate investment. And so I'm curious, like what are some of the products that people have looked to for that next transition?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll share that here at Progressive Multiplier, we don't use a traditional donor CRM,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not where we needed to figure out that line between program management, right? Working with our grantees, working with you all folks and managing the relationships here and moving you all forward, while also still we are a nonprofit as well, while still also managing the fundraising portion, the fundraising management as well. So we kind of went the non-traditional route and are using HubSpot to help manage that. And we're finding it's fun to use. I don't know how to put it, but it seems to be working well. There are definitely things that, we are still working out and mapping our data as well in there. But it's working for our purposes as well. So don't all my like advice is also, think outside the box a bit for what you're looking at, and like maybe it's an SRM that works for your needs, especially with like Anna, like membership model, like maybe an SRM will help with that. I think she popped off already, but Diane was talking about like these reminders of like it's
Mm,
been X amount of days. I definitely see that on my profile. Like it'll say like, hey, you haven't spoken to this person in 2 weeks, and you said you were going to send this task. Can you do that? So it absolutely works that way, but it is a sales based
mm,
system. So think of like how you need to rethink the language in that sales
mm,
system. So that seems to work for us.
mhm,
And
mhm.
are you using AI in any way? Because I feel like a lot of these products are default
A
assigning
lot,
AI.
yeah, a lot of them are integrating that, and I think that's a conversation that goes back to that several conversations, right? Like who owns it, how
Mhm,
what your data privacy and your internal structure is around that, and what your own organizational like procedures and practices are around AI that you need to talk about. That's
mm,
one thing we didn't mention here. That is a
yeah.
completely other like 10
Mhm,
conversations we need to have about AI, right? Of how that's integrating, because even in Gmail, and like we all, like I'm gonna say myself, I have a Gmail and I am seeing that there is, Gemini is in there, and I have to go in and unconnect it from my stuff because I don't want it in there.
mhm,
Um, it's becoming a more common practice to see AI integrated. So that's also another conversation point to have with, the people you're connecting with on the CRM side of like, what is AI? Are you going to give me the option? Or is the data that I'm putting into the system, is it going to feed into AI in any way?
mm,
Um, and do I have ownership of making sure that you're not using my data to feed your AI, your other AI project that you have going on? So lots of conversation data is becoming trickier and trickier.
mm,
The Council on Nonprofits has a wonderful space on like cybersecurity that has like helpful links and helpful articles to look through. So I always encourage folks to consider going to the Council of Nonprofits website to see what they have available on like cybersecurity, especially in the nonprofit space. That's also they'll sometimes have lists of resources, other like more cybersecurity focused trainings and whatnot there. So definitely, if folks are having these conversations and want to participate a little bit more in there, definitely I would consider your first space to go to the Council of Nonprofits
that's
for
great.
cybersecurity information. Yes,
Mar-
Mark offers a 40% nonprofit
mhm,
discount on licensing. So I think I wasn't part of the decision to move into HubSpot. I kind of I am able to move into it. I came in with HubSpot and we are still building it out, but from what I know and from, what our power users are saying, that they're pretty happy with how HubSpot is
mhm.
working for us.
That's great. That's great. I
Yes,
have
and so
used I have used Salesforce and Razor's Edge. Salesforce requires a lot of management, and I will say, unless you have a full-time person, at least one who's going to manage it, I would not encourage that. Razor's Edge also, I actually think it's a better tool, but you need a full-time database manager. And so then I think you need enough information in there for it to be worthwhile, frankly. I'm currently using Bloomerang with a couple clients. I like Bloomerang a lot. I think it does a lot, but it's not as cumbersome. It does the reminders, all of that good stuff. I can't speak to the cybersecurity or data integrity. That would need additional work, but I think it's a good kind of mid-range tool that's reasonable, and you can run it without a full-time database person. I know
yeah,
somebody mentioned Give Butter, but I'm not sure if that person is still on. I haven't used that tool, but I get a lot of ads for it.
I think that's also something to consider, right? With Salesforce, HubSpot, they offer all this, you can make it whatever you want. And like, it's almost like this blank slate, but then you come to that, I know for myself, when I see like a blank document with a blinking cursor, there's like a little bit of a freeze. Like
Mhm.
I don't know what I can do with it. It's almost like, you bought a pair of shoes that are a little bit too big for you. So keep that in mind as well. Um, I know for those considering Salesforce, absolutely, if you are a progressive nonprofit and you have your organizational values, outlined and secure, definitely take a look at Salesforce, because they have been sold and there have been some considerations on from uh organization's value side, they're deciding to move away from Salesforce because of how they're using their data and how who they're partnering with. So definitely take a look at those, especially these big software systems that we're thinking about. I have worked in Salesforce. I have worked in Blackbaud, Razor's Edge. I have used LexisNexis at organizations. That's a wealth engine capacity search system. That is scary. But I have used LexisNexis. And those are all conversations that we need to have about whether it aligns with our organizational values. And again, that's maybe something that we are willing to
Mhm.
kind of give up, that userability, that interface, those reports, the fancy bells and whistles, because it does not align with our systems. And, because we are moving towards maybe a newer startup system that does align, we get to own all our data. They don't, throw what we're putting into an AI engine so that they can build that. But it has less bells and whistles, and we might need to still do some manual work on our end. It is a give and take conversation we need to have. Mark, are you I know you're focusing on HubSpot. Have you had conversations about migrating away and are migrating into HubSpot right now? Oh,
Um, we have had conversations with two consultants to help us with build outs and migration of data. And I had a conversation with HubSpot on Monday directly about their platform.
Mhm.
And at this point, we're in a holding pattern. We're waiting for some funding to come through to help with the
Mhm.
build out process.
Okay.
So we're leaning that direction. And at this point, I don't think we're going to go with another platform unless something comes up in the meantime that's a better fit. I've used a little bit of Razor's Edge in the past, Donut Pro in the past,
Mhm.
and I think prior to becoming on board, we've had Salesforce for quite some time, and it just wasn't a platform that we were using fully.
Mhm.
yeah. I think that's a common thing we hear. Like we have it, but we're not really living into it because like either there's no capacity to manage it to its full force, or like we just don't need it. And it becomes cumbersome, and there's a lot of bleed in systems there. So definitely see that as well. Um, yeah.
I have another
Anyone?
Great.
question. Sorry, I just want
Please.
one last question. Systems wise, I know we're talking about like centralizing data
Mhm.
into a CRM, and like I'm curious because I'm sure many folks have like newsletters, donation platforms, websites, CRMs, like, and they all sort of need to talk to each other. I'm wondering if anybody has any experience with Zapier in sort
Mhm.
of the back end integration, if like we can't do a Salesforce that can push out our newsletters and push out communications and keep things up to date. Could anybody share what their experiences using it?
I can share a little. I haven't used it for the CRM side, but I love Zapier. I feel like it's enabled us to do so much and really like help workflow flows. Even just for example, we use Ticket Tailor for events. We have an event where like basically I wanted to get the info in Google Sheets running because otherwise, like let's say we have a bunch of volunteers for an event, I'd have to every time a new person registered, like pull a new spreadsheet. It wouldn't automatically go in there. So like I was using Zapier for that. Um, it can be tricky, but my like obviously this is up to your values and organizational. I just learned it by honestly using ChatGPT and asking questions. And then if I'd get stuck on something, I would put like a screenshot of the question I'm stuck in. It would walk me through. But it's been a really helpful tool. They do have a like slight nonprofit discount as well.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Let's
Friends,
see.
we're almost at the end of our time together. Is there anything else we can answer or spitball with y'all?
And of
Thank you all
course,
for being
you
so
all
engaging.
I know. And if you all do want to continue a one-on-one conversation, please feel free to reach out to Michelle Mangle at Resilience Initiative, and let her know that you're interested in having, one-on-one coaching session. Either a coach at Progressive Multiplier can help walk you through the CRM tool and help you do the considerations and help along with that conversation. So please feel free to reach out if you have questions. I know Emily shared the links in the chat to our CRM tool and that other conversation that we referenced. Those have been super helpful in helping guide conversations, and they will be included in the follow-up email that you'll be getting from joining us today. And with that, if no one else has any questions, I hope you all have a great day and have a good Friday to sit and think about your data and your CRMs a bit more.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you all so
much.
much.